Welcome into another edition of Is This Rumor a Real Rumor? In today's episode, we're going to discuss the New Orleans Pelicans' reported interest in the Blazers' third overall pick. We're going to discuss what a potential deal could look like, why the Pelicans are potentially interested in that pick, and I'm going to grade this rumor on a scale from real to fake. Shams Charania had a clip on his Twitter account where he reported that the New Orleans Pelicans are expected to aggressively pursue a top 2 or 3 pick in this year's draft with their eyes set on Scoot Henderson. Now this, of course, matters for the Portland Trail Blazers as they are looking to shop the third overall pick for a win-now player, and Scoot Henderson doesn't make much sense on a roster with Damian Lillard still on it. Especially if Anthony Simons is still there, especially if Shaedon Sharpe is still there. We've talked about this all offseason long. Now, the Pelicans and the Blazers collaborated on a major deal somewhat recently. It was the CJ McCollum trade, where the Blazers finally sent out their longtime starting shooting guard to the New Orleans Pelicans, and CJ McCollum is still there. He's been the point guard for the New Orleans Pelicans. But apparently, the Pelicans are set on acquiring Scoot Henderson in the draft to be their long-term starting point guard. Now, I think it might be in the Pelicans' best interest to move CJ McCollum off the ball, or maybe the Pelicans are looking to replace him. I'm not quite sure. But given the fact that Shams Charania is reporting this rumor seems legitimate. In the NBA, it's a lot easier to contend and win a championship if you have a top 10 player in the league. You need a superstar in order to win the NBA. That's not always the case, but that is generally the rule. With the Pelicans, they only have one guy on their roster right now that could potentially be a top 10 player down the line, and that, of course, is Zion Williamson. However, given his weight issues and injury problems, Zion Williamson has not been reliable enough to expect him to be a top 10 guy that you can rely on for the greater part of a season. He's only played more than 30 games in one season ever. He was injured almost all year last year, and he can't be counted on to give you that sort of consistent day in, day out production. The Pelicans have some decent role players now. They've made some good draft picks in previous years, including Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. However, given Zion's problems, the Pelicans need some more upside on their roster. They need a guy that can potentially blossom into that number one superstar where they wouldn't have to rely on Zion Williamson so much and they could rely on a Scoot Henderson. And then when Zion Williamson's healthy and playing, then you potentially have a superstar duo. The Pelicans look good to start this season. That was with Zion, though. They are a good team if he's healthy. That's just such a variable that I think the Pelicans could be looking to swing for some legitimate upside while Zion is still young. The Pelicans also have Brandon Ingram, who's 25 years of age. He's still young and could fit a timeline with a Zion Williamson and a Scoot Henderson. However, given the production of some of the wings in the Pelicans system, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, who I mentioned, and then Dyson Daniels, who is expected to become more of a contributor as he was the 8th overall pick in last year's draft. You have to wonder if the Pelicans are maybe looking to move off Brandon Ingram in order to make this potential trade happen. And this creates some intrigue for the Portland Trail Blazers, who are shopping the pick for a win-now wing. Now, this doesn't have to include the Blazers. If the Pelicans offer is good enough, then maybe they could trade for the number 2 overall pick and guarantee themselves Scoot Henderson. The Blazers' offseason depends on the Charlotte Hornets. I dropped a whole video on that right after the draft lottery. And that's because if the Charlotte Hornets pass on Scoot Henderson, the Blazers' third overall pick becomes more valuable in a trade because I think he's a clear-cut number 2 player in this draft. However, the Charlotte Hornets are potentially looking for a wing to pair next to point guard LaMelo Ball instead of another point guard. I think Scoot Henderson and LaMelo Ball can fit. However, Brandon Miller's been the name that's been tied to the Charlotte Hornets for a while now. There's even been reports that a lot of NBA personnel actually think Brandon Miller is the better prospect than Scoot Henderson, and I absolutely disagree with that. However, if that's truly the case, and Charlotte is looking for a guy that fits next to LaMelo Ball, then I guess I would expect the Hornets to take Brandon Miller at that point, which would give the Portland Trail Blazers a lot of leverage amongst many teams in the NBA who would be interested in a Scoot Henderson, including apparently the Pelicans. But when looking at a potential deal with the Pelicans, it's really hard to determine what exactly that would look like, as it could be a number of potential things. It could even be that the Pelicans are willing to trade Zion Williamson, with all the issues that he's encountered, for Scoot Henderson, which is just very intriguing for the Blazers and something I didn't think would be possible, and I still think it's kind of far-fetched, but I mean, if the Pelicans love Scoot Henderson that much and he's there at 3, then who knows? I think everything's on the table. Except for a CJ McCollum return. Obviously, that's not going to happen. But before I look at this from the Blazers' point of view, is this rumor a real rumor? I think it absolutely is. I think the only question as to how legitimate this is how badly do the New Orleans Pelicans want Scoot Henderson? Are they willing to trade Zion? Are they willing to trade Brandon Ingram? They do have a ton of future firsts. They have a ton of key young guys. So they can put together a number of different packages involving different things and different calibers of players and all sorts of stuff. But Portland is actually going to be the team with the leverage in this scenario. Because Portland is the team that has the commodity, that has the 3rd overall pick, that has the right to draft Scoot Henderson should Charlotte pass on him. There's going to be multiple teams interested in that, and even though Portland wants to win next year by all accounts and wants to put a winner around Damian Lillard, which would obviously involve trading the 3rd overall pick, if you have enough interest in that pick, then that doesn't really matter because it becomes an all-out bidding war. What the Pelicans package would look like, I'm not sure, but I definitely think they are interested, and I definitely think this rumor is real. Now, as for the Blazers' point of view, Eric Brandt actually teased this sort of trade package about 2 months ago. Eric had a Twitter poll where he asked Blazer fans if the Blazers got the number 2 overall pick, would they trade the right to draft Scoot Henderson for Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, the 14th pick, and a future first? 37% of Blazer fans said yes, including me. 20% said no, 28% said the Blazers need more, and 15% said the Pelicans wouldn't do it. Now, I've kind of soured a little bit on this trade package. I think the Blazers need a legitimate star caliber player out of a trade with the number 3 overall pick. However, if this would keep Dame happy and was a good fallback option, and the Blazers could follow it up with some other shrewd moves, then I think you could be in business. Trey Murphy was really good last year, still young, has some upside, and then Herb Jones could be a Bruce Brown type of role player. Bruce Brown just won a championship like 30 minutes ago, so congrats to him. But with the Blazers needing to improve their defense, Herb Jones would make a lot of sense, and then you get the 14th pick to couple with the 23rd pick to maybe go get something, a future first to put that in play. Maybe the Blazers get their future first back from Chicago using the first they get back from New Orleans. There's a bunch of different things that Portland could do in this trade, and that's why I said yes at the time. However, I think the Blazers just need more value out of giving up a potential superstar in Scoot Henderson, because I don't expect any of the assets that the Blazers get back in that trade to become all-stars. The Blazers need somebody that's either an all-star or somebody they expect to be an all-star back for that 3rd overall pick. So at this point, I would say the Blazers need more. The main package that's gotten thrown out there is Brandon Ingram for the 3rd overall pick and Anthony Simons. I think that is a massive overpay from the Portland Trail Blazers, and if they really are considering that, they better get back the 14th overall pick or Herb Jones. I would maybe want both back in a trade. Now, I don't expect Pelicans fans to like that, and I think in any Brandon Ingram for the 3rd overall pick trade, either the Pelicans or the Blazers lose. I don't think there's a deal to be had there. And that's because I don't think Brandon Ingram really solves the Blazers' defensive issues. He's not a good defensive player. He can score the ball. Offensively, he would be nice, but I'm not even sure how much better he is offensively than Anthony Simons at this point. Sure, you'd have more size. Shaedon Sharpe could then start at the 2, and you could start Brandon Ingram at the 3. He has the size for that position. But I don't think bringing in Brandon Ingram really solves anything defensively for the Portland Trail Blazers, and I don't think it solves the rebounding. So that's why I would also need Herb Jones in the trade to help the Blazers get a boost defensively to potentially justify giving up the value of a 3rd overall pick. Or the Blazers would just need back other assets so they can go and fix those problems elsewhere and potentially build out a really good bench and get some better point of attack defenders and whatnot. I know a lot of fans will like the idea of Brandon Ingram. However, I just don't think he's a fit. He's not a good defensive piece. And for the Blazers, that's the number one thing they have to fix. They have to improve their defense. They were awful last year. They've been awful for a while. Any trade involving the 3rd overall pick and Anthony Simons that doesn't bring back at least a Jaylen Brown level defender and a really good offensive player just doesn't make sense. Mikal Bridges makes a ton of sense for Portland because he's a lockdown guy. Jaylen Brown can bring it on both ends of the floor and can guard on the ball. Brandon Ingram doesn't bring it on the defensive end, so that's a no-go for me. Now, Zion Williamson, I wouldn't be too keen on either. I just don't think you can consistently rely on him. It would give the Blazers a lot of upside and a dominant dominant physical presence on the interior. However, it would involve the Blazers moving Jeremy Grant to the small forward position, and I don't think the Blazers would be any better defensively in that scenario. It is intriguing because of how young Zion is, and he's on a cheaper contract. Maybe the Blazers could keep Anthony Simons in such a trade, but it'd be very risky, and even if Zion is healthy next year, I'm not sure that Blazer team contends, because I still think it's bad defensively. Eric Brandon and I will discuss more trade hypotheticals involving the Pelicans on our stream, which goes live about an hour from this recording, probably right after this video drops. It's on our second channel. We stream Mondays and Thursdays. We go live between 9:30 and 9:50-ish Pacific time. There's a link to the second channel in the description box below, so hit that subscribe button and catch us live right after this video drops to discuss more hypotheticals. Now, the one thing that could make the most sense for both teams would be if the Blazers could flip Brandon Ingram for a good player that fits better from a third team. If Jaylen Brown is truly available and the Celtics aren't super keen on paying him, maybe Anthony Simons and Brandon Ingram to the Celtics for Jaylen Brown and another piece to match salary could make some sense, and the Pelicans get the third overall pick. Because let's be honest, Anthony Simons doesn't really fit there if they're trading for Scoot and still have CJ McCollum. I guess you could run a 3-guard lineup there and just, man, it would be weird to see Anthony Simons and CJ McCollum together in New Orleans. So anyway, let me know what you think of these trade rumors, of these hypotheticals. If you're a Blazers fan, what pieces from the New Orleans Pelicans would you want back in return for the third overall pick? And if you're a Pelicans fan, what's the most that you would be willing to give up in order to get Scoot Henderson with a third overall pick? Let me know down in the comment section below. I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts. And with that being said, I'm out of here. I'll catch you in the next video or on the stream tonight. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.